Imagine, just for a second, a worldview where absolutely everything is connected by a single mathematical force.
And we really do mean everything.
Yeah, I mean everything. The laws of physics, the strict structure of human society, even the purpose of a random rainstorm outside your window.
Right. All of it governed by a very specific, rigidly defined concept of love.
Which is just an incredibly bold premise to try and build an entire universe around.
It really is. I mean, we are talking about a system that attempts to explain the entire cosmos, not through, gravity or quantum mechanics or whatever,
Right.
but through a highly engineered, meticulously directed flow of relational energy.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking in today's deep dive.
Yes, we are.
We are looking at a single, really fascinating source document today. It's an April 1984 speech given by Reverend Sun Myung.
Right, titled Generation Record of the True Parent's Love.
Exactly. And it is quite the document, to put it mildly.
Oh, absolutely. It basically lays out the foundational theology of the Unification Church.
Yeah.
It weaves together sociology, biology, and theology into this one massive, inescapable framework.
Now, before we really jump into the thick of it, a really crucial note for you listening.
Yeah, this is important.
This source material contains some highly specific and very strongly worded, religiously and politically charged viewpoints.
Especially regarding gender roles, individualism, and social order.
Right. So our mission today is absolutely not to endorse these views, and it's not to condemn them either.
No, we are just here to impartially decode the text itself.
Exactly. We want to understand the fascinating, internally consistent philosophical architecture that Reverend Moon was presenting to his followers.
We are treating this as an exercise in understanding how a complete cosmological ecosystem is built.
Like looking at the blueprints.
Right, the blueprints. And what is brilliant about this particular blueprint is how it actually starts. Because it doesn't begin with the cosmos or the stars. It starts by attacking a single, very small word.
The word I.
Exactly, the word I.
Let's unpack that. Because the foundational premise of this entire speech is the absolute failure of individualism.
Yeah, the concept of I or myself is framed as a complete dead end.
Like a solitary individual, no matter how materially successful or spiritually enlightened they are, is just structurally incomplete.
Reverend Moon uses this incredibly vivid example to drive that point home for his audience.
Oh, right, the airplane one.
Yeah. He asks them to imagine a highly successful woman. She owns an automobile that's literally studded with diamonds.
Which is quite an image.
Right. And she flies around in a diamond-studded airplane. And she says, I don't need anything else. I'm perfectly fulfilled.
But within this theology, she is entirely wrong.
Completely wrong. She is categorized as a complete failure.
I mean, think about how we usually view success today. We champion independence, self-reliance.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But here, material success or personal glory means absolutely nothing in isolation.
The speech actually takes it to a mathematical extreme.
How so?
Well, it asks, what happens if the world is composed of only single women? It goes nowhere.
Right, the system just stops.
Exactly. He says you could have 3.99 billion women on Earth, and they would gladly trade all of their diamond-studded airplanes for just one man.
Because without the opposite polarity, the world simply cannot continue.
Right. I cannot generate life or meaning on its own.
So trying to find fulfillment as a solitary individual in this system, it's essentially like having the most expensive top-of-the-line smartphone.
Okay, I like this analogy.
But it has no Wi-Fi, no cellular antenna, no Bluetooth.
Right.
It is a gorgeous piece of glass and titanium, but because it is completely disconnected from any network, it is fundamentally useless.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. The hardware might be flawless, but without the network, it completely fails its primary function.
Exactly.
And the architecture here relies on scaling this concept all the way up to the divine.
Yes, this is the wild part.
Even God is bound by this exact same rule.
Which is such a wild departure from traditional omnipotent depictions of a deity.
It really is.
The text argues that even though God is almighty and omnipresent, if God remains a solitary I, he will be terribly unhappy.
Because God fundamentally desires the status of we.
Right.
This speech actually proposes that if God could sell himself, he would trade absolutely everything he has just to buy love.
Wow. Sell himself.
Yeah, because love inherently requires a we. It requires a relationship.
So the universe wasn't initiated out of a desire for power or control.
No, simply because God wanted a reciprocal partner. He laughed first so that we could laugh back.
That's oddly beautiful. But if God desires a we and initiates a universe based on relationships, that leads us directly into how this framework rigidly defines what a fundamental human relationship actually looks like.
Right, and this is where the philosophy aggressively pushes back against modern Western ideas of autonomy.
It pushes back by entirely redefining autonomy as selfishness.
Yeah, because we doesn't just mean, any two people cooperating or forming a community.
No, it's much stricter than that.
It manifests physically and socially through very strict gender complementarity.
The speech explicitly attacks what it calls American individualism, right?
Yes, and what it identifies as feminism, claiming those ideas are rooted in that dead-end, selfish I concept.
The assertion is that men exist solely for the sake of women, and women exist solely for the sake of men.
That is the basic unit of human existence. You do not live for your own sake, period.
Moon gets incredibly specific about how this plays out in everyday life, even down to fashion.
In biology, yeah. He uses the example of a woman wearing earrings.
Right.
He argues she isn't wearing them for herself because without a mirror, she can't even see them.
And she isn't wearing them to attract other women.
No. The framework insists she wears them purely for the sake of appealing to a man's eyes.
Everything is outward facing.
Exactly. Everything faces toward the opposite polarity.
I mean, think about how jarring that is compared to modern concepts of self-actualization.
It's the exact opposite.
We are taught that your body, your fashion choices, your biological cycles, they are your own. They belong to you.
But in this worldview, your very biology belongs to the we.
The speech addresses this directly, too, speaking to women who might resent the physical suffering of their monthly biological cycles.
Yeah, it frames this not as a mere biological function or an inconvenience,
How does it frame it?
as a destiny tied to men.
Wow.
The body is in a constant mechanical state of expectation or readiness for the other half of the equation.
And when a man and woman finally do unite, the metaphor he uses is incredibly mechanical.
Oh, the nut and bolt.
Yeah, they come together like a nut and bolt.
Mechanical metaphors are so appealing to absolutist frameworks,
Why is that?
because machines don't have gray areas. They either function or they are broken.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
By comparing a couple to a nut and bolt, it implies precision, absolute necessity, and an unbreakable bond.
Once that nut and bolt are fastened together, the bond becomes so permanent that not even God can pull them apart.
In fact, he says God joins them at that exact point of connection.
But it's not just some quiet, invisible union. The analogies really escalate here.
Oh, they get huge. Moon compares this coming together to the weather.
The weather. Like a storm.
Exactly like a storm. He says it's like a thunderstorm where low atmospheric pressure and high atmospheric pressure collide.
Generating all that energy.
Yeah, it creates thunder and lightning that literally shakes the entire universe.
I mean, taking a deeply personal, intimate moment between a couple and elevating it to a cosmic meteorological event, that is a powerful psychological tool.
It really is. It tells the follower that when this specific lawful unity happens, it isn't just a personal milestone.
It is a symbolic expression of universal love.
That literally gives off light to the whole world. Your marriage is basically holding the cosmos together.
Okay, but if the husband and wife unit is generating all this cosmic lightning, where does that energy go?
Right, because it's not just operating in a vacuum.
Exactly. It turns out that couple is just the bottom foundational block of a massive hierarchical pyramid.
This brings us to the structural core of unification church theology,
Which is called what?
the heavenly four-position foundation.
Okay.
It is essentially an endless ladder of sacrifice that leads to God.
So you can't just have a personal, direct leap to divine enlightenment.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You must climb this specific social structure.
Walk us through how that ladder is actually constructed.
Well, the steps are uncompromisingly defined. First, the individual must sacrifice for the family.
Okay, makes sense.
Then, the family must sacrifice its own interests for the society.
Right.
The society sacrifices for the nation sacrifices for the world, and finally, the world sacrifices for God.
It is an unbroken chain of altruism. Or, perhaps more accurately, mandatory self-depletion.
Yeah, self-depletion is a good way to put it. The lower level must always give itself up for the betterment of the higher level.
And the argument is that this is the only mathematical way to achieve the unification of humanity.
Exactly. He claims if everyone in a town is striving only for the nation, crime supposedly disappears because no one is looking out for their own localized interests.
Reverend Moon is also very transparent about where he sits within this hierarchy.
Oh, very transparent. He positions himself as the ultimate pioneer.
The one sacrificing himself for the sake of the whole world.
Right, operating constantly one step ahead of his followers. And he acknowledges that maintaining this unbroken chain requires a tremendous amount of demanding, painful work.
To illustrate his leadership style, he uses this fascinating anecdote comparing two kinds of teachers on a beautiful spring day.
I love this part. The first teacher looks outside, sees the sunshine, and says, "Hey, it's a beautiful day. Let's go on a pleasant spring picnic and have fun."
Sounds like a great teacher.
Right. But Moon proudly declares he is the second kind of teacher.
Yeah, tough one.
Yeah. When the students are distracted and want to go outside, he yells, "You rascals! Sit down right here, and I'm going to give you a tough exam."
He fully embraces the title of the tough teacher.
He really does. He knows his followers will complain, that they might even view him as a dictator.
But he insists that pushing them, giving them a hard time, driving them to absolute exhaustion, that is the only way to guarantee they reach heaven.
He is essentially remolding them out of selfishness.
Which he openly admits is a process that makes everyone yell, "Ouch!"
Yes.
But wait, hang on. This is where I have to pause and just look at the sheer logistics of this system.
Okay, let's look at it.
Because if I am constantly sacrificing my personal well-being for my family,
Right.
and my family is bleeding itself dry for the community, and the community is sacrificing for the nation,
It's a lot.
all while a tough teacher is screaming at us to take harder exams, how is anyone surviving this?
That is the big question.
Biologically, psychologically, that just sounds like a recipe for immediate systemic burnout. Where's the energy to sustain this constant agonizing sacrifice actually come from?
It is the most critical flaw in any system demanding endless sacrifice. And it is exactly the question this text brilliantly anticipates.
How does he solve it?
To solve the problem of burnout, Reverend Moon executes the most surprising pivot in the entire philosophical framework.
Yeah.
He completely reimagines the laws of physics.
Okay, this is where the blueprint goes from sociology to science fiction.
Pretty much, yeah. He divides all energy in the universe into two distinct categories: external energy and internal energy.
Let's start with external.
External energy is the natural world, as our scientists understand it. In the physical world, things are governed by attrition and thermodynamics.
Right. When matter is in motion, it eventually wears out.
Exactly. You bounce a rubber ball, it loses momentum with every bounce until it just stops.
Friction exists.
In the natural world, if you have give and take, the available energy always decreases.
Things degrade. But to bypass human exhaustion, he introduces internal energy.
Which he calls prime energy.
Prime energy. Okay, how does that work?
Well, prime energy is defined as the energy of love. And according to this new physics, prime energy works backward. It defies natural attrition entirely. In the system, the output is actually mathematically greater than the input.
He uses an electricity metaphor here that is just fascinating.
Yeah, explain the electricity thing.
So normally, if you put 100 volts of electricity into a system, you might only get 80 or 90 volts of usable work out of it because of resistance and heat law.
Some along the way.
Right. But with prime energy, if you put in 10 volts of love, you miraculously receive 100 volts back.
It multiplies. And he actually applies this directly to his own life to prove it to his followers.
How so?
He points out that he has 12 children.
Okay.
From a purely external mathematical perspective, a skeptic might think each child only gets 1/12 of his love and attention. Right?
Sure, you divide it up.
But he argues that because of prime energy, he gives 100% of his love to each child.
So he is essentially generating 1,200% love out of thin air?
Exactly. The psychological implication of this is massive.
Yeah, altruism isn't just a nice moral idea anymore. It's a literal perpetual motion machine.
Right. It's an unlimited renewable energy source.
And look at how that functions for a charismatic leader. It explains why he claims he never gets tired.
Despite a lifetime of persecution, global travel, court battles, all of it.
He tells his followers he knows how to tap into this prime energy because he gives limitlessly, he receives limitlessly.
And if you redefine energy this way, you completely eliminate the excuse of being tired.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
If a follower claims they are burnt out from sacrificing for the hierarchy.
It's no longer a systemic failure.
Exactly. It is a spiritual failure.
Yeah.
They simply aren't tapping into the prime energy correctly.
That is an airtight defense mechanism against any kind of dissent or complaint.
It really is airtight. And he doesn't stop at human endurance either. He uses this concept of prime energy to reject the entire scientific theory of random evolution.
This is where we get to the amoeba, right?
Yes. A single-celled amoeba, the speech argues, could never evolve into a higher, more complex animal just by sitting around waiting for random genetic mutations.
So how does it happen?
Evolution, according to this framework, requires a deliberate external injection of this prime energy.
A plus must attract a minus to create new, higher energy.
Right. It is an entirely directed, engineered universe.
He paints this incredibly enchanted picture of the world as a museum of God's love,
The whole universe is just expressing this mechanical love.
like the insects making noise in the summer. He says they aren't just communicating, they are making sounds of love for their mates.
He even says the rocks are singing.
Singing rocks. It's poetry, honestly.
Everything in existence is craving a mediator to convey its love to a higher level. And human beings, sitting atop the natural world, are the ultimate mediators.
Which brings us to a truly wild example in the text regarding food.
Oh, the cows.
The cows. Moon argues that lower animals, like cows, are actually glad to be eaten by human beings.
I mean, on the surface, that sounds absurd.
Totally absurd.
But dive into the logic of the ecosystem he built. By being consumed by a human, the nutrients of the cow become part of the human body. And since the human is capable of loving God, the cow indirectly achieves its ultimate cosmic purpose of ascending to God's love.
The cow's sacrifice is a joyous upward movement.
Exactly.
But there is a massive catch to eating that glad cow.
What's the catch?
You only have the right to consume it if you are a person of love, operating correctly within the hierarchy.
Ah.
The text actually warns that the universe is constantly auditing your love.
That auditing concept is brilliant from a sociological standpoint
It really is.
because it creates an airtight justification for resource consumption, but only for the chosen followers.
If you do not love God, if you aren't part of this specific prime energy circuit, you are essentially a cosmic thief.
You are consuming the universe's resources, taking the life of that cow without relaying that energy back up the chain to the divine.
So if the universe requires this exact plus and minus formula to avoid winding down, and if human beings are the crucial mediators keeping the whole machine running,
There has to be a perfect model.
right, there must be a perfect, uncorrupted model of this love on earth to calibrate everything against.
And that calibrating force is the ultimate conclusion of the speech.
The true parents.
Yes, the concept of the true parents as the absolute nucleus of this entire cosmic system.
The true parent's love represents the singular standard. It is the formula.
Because the universe relies on that strict nut and bolt gender complementarity.
And the correct flow of prime energy.
Right. So the text argues that their tradition is the only valid way for humanity to live.
Which is exactly why the text explicitly labels alternative lifestyles. It specifically mentions homosexuality, lesbianism, and promiscuity as perverted.
And it is so crucial to understand that within this framework, this isn't just a moral judgment.
No, it's not just moral.
It is a mechanical one.
It's treated like a broken circuit board.
Precisely. Those lifestyles are rejected because they break the mechanical circuit of energy flow.
The polarity is wrong.
Right. If the universe runs on a strict polarity to generate prime energy, anything that deviates from that polarity disrupts the perpetual motion machine.
They are viewed as existential threats to the physics that keep the universe from degrading.
It's all connected. Unpacking a speech like this reveals so much about the architecture of belief.
It really shows how charismatic leaders create an ecosystem of thought where every single piece locks into the next.
Once you accept the core premise that individualism is a failure and that love is a measurable physics equation requiring a specific plus and minus wine,
Then everything else falls perfectly into place.
the strict gender roles, the endless pyramid of sacrifice, even absolute obedience to a tough teacher who pushes you to exhaustion.
It all becomes entirely logical.
In fact, it becomes necessary. Because if you truly believe you are tapping into the perpetual motion machine of the universe, why wouldn't you obey the person who discovered the formula?
It is just a masterful piece of architectural persuasion. Let's do a quick recap of the journey this philosophical blueprint took us on today. It started with the absolute destruction of the I, arguing that a solitary person disconnected from the network is a structural failure.
And from there, it built a strict hierarchical pyramid of social sacrifice, where the individual serves the family serves the nation, climbing all the way up to God.
Then it answered the logistical problem of human burnout by literally rewriting the laws of thermodynamics with prime energy.
We're giving 10 volts of love miraculously yields 100 volts in return.
And finally, it culminated in the assertion that the true parents act as the absolute nucleus of this cosmic museum.
Making their specific tradition the only way to keep the universe running and properly auditing its resources.
It is a massive amount of conceptual architecture to digest. Before we sign off, what is the ultimate takeaway we should leave the listener with today?
Think about this. If a belief system defines love not just as an emotion or a fleeting feeling, but as a literal, measurable, physics-like energy that powers the universe and defies attrition,
Right.
how does that fundamentally change the way a follower experiences every mundane moment of their day?
Wow.
Think about getting caught in a sudden rainstorm. To us, it's just weather.
You just grab an umbrella.
Right. But according to this framework, that storm is the universe physically demonstrating the collision of high and low pressure, teaching you how to love.
Teaching you the formula.
Exactly. How does that mindset change how you face a difficult task at work or an argument with a friend if you believe your daily actions are literally generating the energy that keeps the cosmos from collapsing?
It turns every single moment, no matter how small, into a terrifyingly beautiful cosmic responsibility.
It really does.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the source material. We hope exploring these blueprints helped you understand the profound mechanics behind this fascinating worldview. Keep questioning the frameworks behind the information you consume, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.